welcome back to another episode of Voice of the Rings. I'm your host and guide, Zolan Ironshield, and we have our guest here today again, Jethros, from his channel, and we are going to talk about some counters to Sauron, the hero in RiseToWar. This is a RiseToWar video. We're going to do some learning. So first we're going to talk about Sauron. So I'm going to bring his little traits up and abilities. Again, this is like a giant risk game for those who don't know, but we are going to talk about Sauron because he is very powerful right now, and Jethros has some good counters for him for us to talk about today. So let's start with talking about his abilities. I have his ability windows opened here, so what do you want to start with first, Jethros?
Probably the main thing that's worth mentioning is the Deceiver Tree. I think the common build is the Deceiver Tree and the RiseToWar tree, which is the R3. I think that's what most people
the enemy.
use.
It's got all the stuns, and so he's got both a stun and a madness effect, right?
Yeah,
madness each round.
It's mostly the stun is interesting because it has a chance to go off. But that's for Dazzle, right? Is that the one you're talking about?
Yes, Dazzle.
That's from his Respect 5 tree. Yeah.
Yes.
It's interesting. It's very interesting character. Lots of CC, which is mainly
and confusion.
What you got to be able to deal with.
And they won't be able to read confusion. So against enemy commander, focus -4 every round. 4.3% chance of being silenced. So he also has a silence, which I think I talked about a little bit, and you talked about a little bit of silence. Can you explain what a silence is versus a stun real quick? So people know.
Basically, silence just means that a skill isn't going to go off on the round where the commander is silenced. So there's going to be no skills used. Just basically the commander's regular attack is going to hit with their regular attack, and then or normal attack as this game calls it, and then none of the skills or like abilities will go off at all that round, and then it would basically delay it by one round. So the skill would go off in the next round.
So it doesn't remove
it. Meant to go off. No, it doesn't skip the skill for that round.
That's important. So it kind of pushes it.
It comes back immediately the next one.
Okay, all right. So then it would be off slightly because of the cooldowns, right, or whatever. Yeah. So
and then it still has the same cooldown.
He's a crazy character because he's got so much focus damage, and then not just that, he's got a dazzle stun, he's got madness effects, and he also has a silence. So again, he also gains stun immunity himself when you max out the eye, which is, I mean the enemy, the eye symbol, in his tier 5. So this guy is crazy. So now that we've kind of covered how he's strong, we weren't doing a video necessarily on how to build him because neither of us have him at this point, but I'm sure we could. He's obviously just a super focus hero, or villain, should I say? I don't know. I guess they call them evil commanders versus good commanders in this. All right, so let's talk about what's good counters. Let's start with commanders. What commanders do you think are good against him?
Imrahil is probably the best commander that I can think of off the top of my head. And then anyone with the White Council tree is very good. So there's Gandalf the Grey, Gandalf the White. I think Elrond has it. I believe Galadriel has it. A lot of the tier 3 good commanders have that one. I think Gandalf the Grey is the only tier 2 good commander that has it.
Yeah, because technically he's the only one with Telly's Gandalf the White that would have it, because all the other people that are in the White Council, which there's 5 of them, I believe. There's a couple of them, but right, Gandalf, Galadriel, Elrond, and then of course Saruman, but I don't think he has it on the evil side, does he? I'm curious. Does Saruman have something similar? He obviously is not part of the White Council anymore at this point.
I don't remember him having it.
He doesn't. No, I'm just saying in the lore he has it. I was just curious if they do anything with that. All right, well then, so that in Imrahil, the reason you were saying Imrahil is so good is because of Prince of Dol-Amroth. When you when you put 1 point in it, and a lot of people get confused on this, I think, like you were pointing this out in the other episode, that it says mounted units, speed +1, and then it's got a little thing, little apostrophe there, gain, stun, and madness immunity. That doesn't just apply to horses, right? Because of the guy? That's
I
everyone
think
then, right?
I think it does apply just to the mounted units actually.
Oh, okay, okay.
I'm not 100% sure, to be honest with you, but I believe the way I see it when I read it is
So he'd have to
that
be a
if
mountain army.
yeah, these two things are just applying to mounted units.
But again, this is the reason why he's so good against him, because just having
Yeah,
pure stun and madness immunity, and it's for him too. So like, because he's like, that's crazy. I think it's for him too, isn't it?
I don't
Would it
think
be
so.
for? You don't think it's for him too? Oh, really?
I really don't.
I actually thought it was for his whole army for some reason when I read it. I must be thinking of a different hero.
If it does apply to him, then that means it just applies to him. I think it applies to mounted units, because if you're going to separate it by the comma, this is really going to get into semantics, but if you're going to separate it by the comma, then that would mean that, okay, now we're done, the mounted units are the only ones getting speed, gain, stun, and madness immune. That would just be applying to the commander then. I don't think it would apply to all of them.
True.
Both things. I think it just applies to the mounted units, because those are what's in the bracket.
There was that other thing you found that did that though, and I can't remember what skill on a different hero. That's why I was thinking.
Brawler.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, which one was that? I'm confused which one that was.
So on Aragorn, the second.
Oh yeah. That's what I was thinking of.
He has brawling training. Let me see.
Yeah.
And that applies, it just says against enemy melee units, damage dealt +3. That applies to the army.
Okay. But still, Imrahil's a huge counter. So what other counters from just a skill point of view? I mean, all the white, really, right? Just Gandalf and stuff, you were saying?
Yeah, if we're just talking about commanders, then yeah, the skills that are going to help out the most are the white, because of the high alert tree. So all the focus damage is going to be reduced by 50%. But then also White Council itself gives a reduction in the early few instances of damage. So even if you say get your commanders get madness and they get struck hard early, that's going to be reduced quite a bit. So it's not going to take as much early losses, and then he really doesn't have that much strength in the later rounds after. If he doesn't do enough damage in the first couple rounds with what he's all his disruption.
And mainly, and that's also because you can go into White Council and High Alert, right? That's the big ones, right? Because those are both
right. I mean, yeah, definitely. I mean, if you're fighting an evil commander, there's also a possibility they have evil units too. So if you're fighting an actual evil army and they have tier 4s that are evil, then doing the extra damage to Orc, Uruk-hai, and trolls or whatever it is gonna help out actually a lot too. So if you're specifically trying to counter something, then it's definitely worth.
Yeah, definitely. Does that. Okay, sweet, cool. So that's probably all the and then Gil-galad, right? Isn't he White Council? Yeah, he's the White Council. Okay. Yep. Very cool. All right, sweet. So then all the heroes basically that you can use are Gandalf the White, Gandalf the Grey, Galadriel, Elrond, and Gil-galad, right? Those are the 5. I believe they're all White Council.
Another thing that's not really so super amazing, but you can kind of dodge a lot of the early skills from him too with King of the Dead, Army of the Dead maxed out can not allow your undead to be affected by any skills cast in the preparation bit phase, which is a lot of the stuff. So the stuns and things early, for example, that would also work against Gandalf's stun because technically it's cast during that time.
Yeah, so he definitely does have some very strong points, the King of the Dead. Cool. All right, sweet. All right, and now why don't we go into items then, since I think that's probably all the heroes that are really good counters, right? Realistically, anyone that uses a lot of focus could be decent too against him, just because you take less focus damage then. But I find that all my might heroes get destroyed by him, so don't really get much anywhere with might. But why don't we go ahead and talk about items, which will probably come down to that quilted thing and stuff. Should we start with that? I could open that here. All right, let's start with this.
So
armor.
trying to reduce the armor, or trying to reduce the damage from an armor piece is going to be a good shot with the quilted armor, because maxed out it gives minus 60% focus damage, which is good. I mean, he does what I've seen about 100,000 at the high levels with good gear, 100,000 plus focus damage, somewhere up into the 150,000 sometimes, and so half of that is going to bring it down to only 50 or 75, which is quite a meaningful reduction to have. So that would be really good against him. and a lot of other commanders that do focus damage. So that's going to help specifically with that. Also, just really honestly, any gear with a lot of focus, or a commander, like you said,
Even
with
like
a lot
a
of
worn out
focus.
pipe or something. 45
Those
focus.
things are helping,
Yeah.
reduce the damage from the focus a little bit too, because of the
And
damage
then,
reduction piece.
so let's talk about the best helmets. And I can bring up the right helmet with the special abilities through another way. So,
Yeah, definitely. The one that comes to mind the fastest is the Horseman's Helm, with
warding?
Resolve.
Oh, Resolve. Okay, I'm going to bring up all their abilities. So this is all the abilities they could have. So, Resolve, the top one.
So Resolve gives allied units chance to gain Madness immunity for 3 rounds. So that's great.
And then Warding, obviously,
Warding
can
gives
be good
the stun
too.
reduction, the stun chance immunity, exactly.
Are there any other equipment that's not a helmet?
There are other helmets that do that. I don't know off the top of my head. I think there's like a evil helmet that gives these, and unfortunately, I just don't have any of them with me right now.
Yeah,
I'd probably round them all up and slap them onto another piece of armor.
I brought up through the multiple options of the armor, but
yeah, you have to have the actual one to kind of see it.
What about
you can look at the list here. I'll pull it up.
Cloak.
I know how to pull it up. You have to go to Matham. You can do this with me if you want.
Oh yeah, the Matham
Go to
chest.
Matham, then go to Precious Antiquities and hit the question mark, and then click the purple items, and then you can see.
Yeah, we can.
There's the Horseman's Helm. It's just going to tell you the name of the helmets, but it won't tell you the effects until you have it in your inventory. But I believe the Arnor Cask has an ability to do stun or madness. I think it's just a stun one. I think it just has the stun one.
And then actually, now. I think I have it.
You have to go to accursed artifacts in order to.
Yes, it
see
has
the one that I was talking about.
Arnor one has the warding. It also has this is kind of cool too. It has tenacity, which is the one that gives a chance to gain silence immunity. So he also has that. So
that might help a tiny bit.
But not as much as the madness. I think the madness is the big one.
Yeah, I think it's the Brutal Helm. That's the name of the helmet I'm thinking of, that I believe also gives that.
That's on the dark side here?
Yeah, you have to look in the
all right,
cursed artifacts.
Right now. The Brutal Helm. Oh, okay. It's like the Uruk-hai helmet?
Yeah.
Got it. In fact, I might have one of those by chance, unless I used it to refine. Let me look.
I used mine.
Yeah, I know. No, I used it. Yeah.
There are also like gold items that give you things like the
dwarf one gives stun. I know.
Yep. But the Cask of the Submerged Isle, which we actually get from the what do you call it? The season pass is what it's called.
Oh,
it has the chance of having determination, which gives your commander madness immunity potentially for every round, depending on if it triggers in the beginning or not.
Ooh.
And then it also has Aegis, which is amazing. I would love to have this ability on mine. It says first 4 rounds, all allies have a chance to gain immunity to madness and stun for those 4 rounds.
But that's completely random if you get that, right? When you get the thing.
Yeah, I had 2. I've been lucky enough to get 2, and they both have the one that just gives your commander madness immunity, which is great for damage dealing commanders, but not really useful particularly.
Do you get that helmet from the rolling? Is that in the options?
Yeah, it can come from the chests, and it can come. Well, it's a new one. That's why it only come from season 2. That's why it's part of the.
Oh, I see it right there. Okay.
The season pass.
Very cool. All right, sweet.
Yeah, so anything with Aegis on it, I believe the Hunter's Guide or whatever also has that same Aegis ability on it too, because they did a patch changing it. It used to be only 1 round that it would give stun and madness immunity, the first round, and then they changed it to the first 4 rounds, which now it's incredible.
Yeah.
It used to be useless. Or nearly useless. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. So cool. And then, so really, the big ones then for people to finish up the video, the big ones that people need to remember then are the White Council heroes. Anyone focus. Imrahil is a super counter if he's using horses. Now that they know. My mistake. I was thinking wrong with that, but the horses. And then the quilted armor is fantastic for stopping any focus hero, but especially against Sauron, he does a lot. And then not to mention, we also have to think about then the horse helm with its 2 abilities, The Arnor has one of the same ones. That's good. And then what was the last one we were just talking about? You said the brutal helm on the
The
dark
brutal
side
helm.
has it.
Oh,
Yeah.
then there's also there's the hunter's guide and the last resort that I know of off
Oh,
the top of my
okay,
head.
okay. All right. Fantastic. And again, guys, if you want to look yourself at things, you can go and click at the armor you have and click this little thing, bring this down,
I don't
and
know
then
why I
have all
said the
these
last resort,
options.
just to clarify. Sorry. That's one of the abilities that Hunter's Guide has, but
Oh,
the
oh,
ability
oh,
I
oh.
was talking about is the Aegis ability.
Got it, got it. Okay. Yeah, there's a lot of strong things, but that's really, I guess, really it's going to come down to the hero and the armor you're using is really the only way you're going to be able to counter him. So,
Hmm.
again, you can use units too, but one thing you think about too is if he is madness, you could do. This is my idea. And maybe see if you agree with me, Jethros. You could have one group of units have an item that gives you stun immunity. Hope for the best. If you max it out, there is one that gives 100%, right? And then
Hmm.
hope you can beat him up that way, right? But
Yeah, it's a pretty good idea. You're still. I found
still
out I
dangerous, though.
wasn't sure how that worked originally, but when you have one army and you have madness on the army, I found out that it might still be affected by the madness, and it would just kind of act as a stun because it still wastes the turn when it can't find a target.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
it doesn't hit the enemy every time, but it's at least a lot better than you hitting your own
Maybe
enemy.
if
Yeah.
you do because my dwarf armies destroy themselves usually when they're fighting.
Hmm.
So yeah. So there are ways. I still think Imrahil is probably the most powerful counter though to Sauron, just flat out with an army of
Yeah,
horses.
it
Because
definitely looks like well, he's gonna get it early. He's gonna be really good. You don't even have
yeah.
to put very much into him to have it be useful, which is great because you can spread those points out to do other things with him if you don't want to max out that tree.
Definitely, 100%. Well, sweet. I think we've covered. Is there anything else you wanted to add, Jethros, before we?
Just generally speaking, I think focusing on giving the stun immunity and madness immunity is going to be better overall than the focus reduction for
Mm-hmm.
helping deal with him. But the focus reduction is really good against him specifically, but the stun and madness immunity is going to help you out against a lot of other commanders. Obviously focus helps, but there's just so little focus damage in the game by comparison to how much like madness and stun there is in the game, I feel like.
Yeah, it's
So
true.
if you only could afford like one of these things for whatever reason, then I would definitely focus more on the crowd control reduction and immunities rather than the damage reduction on the focus damage.
Totally. And for
Yeah.
example, too, with that very thing, my Ballin has the negative 50%. He has a ton of focus to counter focus, and he also has a negative 50% focus damage. And he fought Sauron, and since he didn't have the madness or stun immunity, he got destroyed. So
Hmm.
still,
Yeah.
so it really does matter to have that over the other one. The other one should just be kind of cream on the crop, I think. But hopefully this helps some of you guys out. We wanted to talk this over because me and Jethros have been trying to figure out what the best thing for Sauron to defeat him because he's so powerful. Especially on our server, we have someone who has a really powerful Sauron with maxed out gear and everything. All right.
Yeah.
Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to check out Jethros' channel too. Just called Jethros, right? Is the name of your channel, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
then you guys have a wonderful day in Middle Earth. Don't forget to like and subscribe. It helps out the channel. And we'll see you in the next episode of Voice of the Rings.